This weekend, Donald Trump said out loud that he called Georgia Governor Brian Kemp and tried to get him to throw out the 2020 election results. Listen.
Let me handle it. I'll call him up. I said, Brian, listen, you have a big election integrity problem in Georgia. I hope you can help us out and call a special election, and let's get to the bottom of it for the good of the country. Let's get to the bottom of it for the good of your state. Let's go, election integrity. What could be better than that? Sir, I'm sorry, I cannot do that. I said, whoa. I said, you cannot do that. And that's why, let me tell you, this guy's a disaster. He's a disaster.
Now, in some ways, it's startling to hear a former president state, admit, confess out loud that he tried to overturn the 2020 election. But this is not some anomaly. It is foundational to Trump and Trumpism now, and he's been telling us this out loud for years. He laid the groundwork before any votes were cast.
Can you give a direct answer? You will accept the election?
I have to see. Look, I have to see. No, I'm not going to just say yes. I'm not going to say no, and I didn't last time either.
Indeed, this was 2016.
The loser concedes to the winner and that the country comes together in part for the good of the country. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
So this time he attempted to sow doubt, spreading disinformation about mail-in voting during a pandemic, mail-in voting, a method of voting championed by Republicans in places like Florida for years.
I think mail-in voting is going to rig the election. I really do.
And before the election, he basically hinted he might declare victory no matter what.
And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that.
Tens of thousands of ballots were not manipulated. That is a fantasy. So was his declaration of victory on election night at 3 a.m.
This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
Frankly, he lost this election. And after losing, his lawyers, whom Bill Barr then called a clown show, filed lawsuit after lawsuit in federal, state, and local courts. Nearly all of them were just flat out rejected. The Supreme Court, on which 3 of his picks currently sit, they refused to hear 2 cases involving big lie claims. Trump tried to enlist Republican state legislators to dispute or ignore the election results, to overturn state votes. Then he pressed officials in Georgia for actions for which he is currently under investigation.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
He tried to get the Justice Department to call the election corrupt. The acting Assistant Attorney General, Jeffrey Clark, helped in this effort, drafting and preparing letters to multiple states to investigate baseless fraud claims. He tried to get his vice president to reject the election results by having Mike Pence block the ceremonial confirmation of the Electoral College vote. A Republican lawyer drafted a 6-point memo to throw out the results on January 6th. This was on paper. Pence refused to go along after advice from Dan Quayle. Finally, Trump enlisted the help of supporters to show up on the Capitol on January 6th, and they did.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
So the important thing, this is not over. He talks about it at every rally. He lies about it in almost every interview. His lies about the election are not some incidental sideshow. They are central to his political future. He is the current frontrunner for the Republican nomination for president in 2024. And as we sit here, 78% of Republicans more or less say they believe it.
It is a staggering number. And a new opinion essay in the Washington Post has this to say about the impact of Donald Trump's efforts to undermine the public's faith in American democracy. The United States is heading into its greatest political and constitutional crisis since the Civil War, with a reasonable chance over the next 3 to 4 years of incidents of mass violence, a breakdown of federal authority, and the division of the country into warring red and blue enclaves. And joining us now to discuss this and the future ahead for the U.S., Kasie Hunt, CNN anchor and chief national affairs analyst, and David Chalian, CNN political director and host of the CNN Political Briefing podcast. One of the scariest things, David, about this opinion essay is the warning that warning signs may be obscured by other events, right? This could happen. These scary things could happen, and we may not, or most of America may not even notice them. What do you think about this assessment?
Well, first of all, beyond how depressing this all is, which it is, it's dangerous. This is happening right now before our eyes. I know John just went through that very extensive history lesson of everything that Donald Trump had done and led us to this moment. But the important point is the one that you guys mentioned at the end there, which is this is still ongoing. This is happening now. And it's not just convincing the Republican Party about the lie, which he has done successfully, but it is also changing the laws in states so that he can, or allies of his can in 2022, and if he does run and is the nominee in 2024, can actually manipulate another poll number in our poll, besides that 78% of Republicans, is that a slim majority of Americans actually believe that elections officials will overturn results for partisan purposes. I mean, you don't have a functioning democracy if you don't have buy-in to the results of a free and fair election. That's it. That's the core thing. And that is the doubt that Donald Trump has now sown into our small d democratic being.
Well, and let's think about the line that held on January 6th and to the actual certification of the election. It was a handful of state election officials. It was Mike Pence on the phone with Dan Quayle. It was Mark Milley and others at the Pentagon. The Trump team is systematically trying to undermine that. I mean, they were trying to do it at the Defense Department as they were on their way out, installing loyalists over there. After people like Brad Raffensperger stood up, now, to David's point, they are working to change those systems. And, you know, I will say, and Brianna, I know you've talked to so many elected officials, when Trump first was elected, everyone kind of thought they were in on the joke, right? They were going to hang around, they were going to do their best to push back against him, but really, he was just eventually going to lose. He was going to go away. And bit by bit, that became the strategy that they used every single time. And I think, you know, a lot of people believed them. They were willing to say, okay, yeah, that seems right. You know, maybe this isn't as bad as people are making it out to be. There was a name for that, Trump derangement syndrome. And then came January 6th, which is something I certainly never thought I would see in my lifetime, and which it certainly changed the game for me being there. You know, I remember thinking, as we were watching these people, surely I should not responsibly report on television that there are people invading the Capitol. But then it turned out that that was actually what was happening. And now the Republican Party is trying to whitewash it, and I think that tells you exactly where we're going.
Yeah, the lie has become their truth.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not just channeling him, they've sort of become him. And the other thing that I find really interesting in a terrible way is that Donald Trump continues, David, to, you know, in these rallies or in interviews, just admit the wrongdoing publicly. I mean, he clearly does not feel like there are any consequences. He's just right out there with it.
Clearly. I mean, Donald Trump is a lot of things. Secretive is not really one of them. I mean, he does really show us and tell us, as he did throughout the entirety of his presidency, who he is and what he's thinking at any given moment. And you're right. There is no fear of repercussion because there are no repercussions. That is what we've come to learn. To the point that you're making about elected officials and Republicans who approach Trump with that strategy, you know, they're just as complicit in this moment of our democracy being in peril as is Donald Trump for perpetrating the big lie. This is something that they've chosen to allow to seep into our body politic that is chipping away at our core democracy here because they refuse to put him away. And that because, again, as you said, he's successful at getting the party and the party faithful to believe in this lie. But this silence is truly part of the problem here.
And the reality is that this has been Donald Trump's MO all the way along. Through his entire life, he has become, he is a creation of the attention that surrounds him, right? To a greater extent than, yes, his father built buildings in New York. He talks about how he moved into Manhattan and all of this, but so much of that was essentially an edifice of publicity, even more than it was actual work. And I think that applies in politics as well. But that's the challenge. He, with his supporters, has discredited all other sources of information to the point that there are people that don't believe sources or places where we are bound by reality and rules and actually saying things that we can prove or point to and say, hey, it's true. But nobody believes it because they've all been conditioned by him not to. And yes, the leaders are definitely a problem, but at the end of the day, they're responding to the Americans who believe Trump.